Is the Dr. Phil show fascist? Is it? Is the Dr. Phil show fascist? I think it is. There is fascism going on the Dr. Phil show. And that is not even in dispute. Because once in a while, like today, like sometimes, like if you're watching TV, like if you want to watch, say, something like Judge Judy or something like that, you turn on the TV. You turn on the TV like a few minutes early, and you happen to catch like the tail end of the Dr. Phil show. So what happens on that show is thoroughly fascist. Because what happens is Dr. Phil has been encouraging people to use bad confinement facilities, also known as programs. That's right. So what happens is, so this has happened at least a couple of times within the past, within like the past month or two, and it happened again today. So this is at least the second time in recent weeks that this has happened. You turn it on, and what it is, it's like some big tough guy confronting. What happens is they hire like a transporter. They hire a guy called a transporter, and sometimes there might be more than one of them. And he's like this big tough guy, and he's like trying to get some teenager, transport some teenager to like some program that's like that's like 1,000 miles away from where they live. And the thing is, and they did it again today. There's like some teenage girl who was probably about 15 or 16, and there was the transporter was this guy who was like 3 times as big as she was, and he comes along and he more email again today, and he comes along and he says, "You're coming with me. You do not have a choice in this, but you're coming with me. And close your mouth because you're coming with me. And that's all there is to it. Let's go." Like that. And he not only is he physically big, but he has a bad attitude too. He had such a bad attitude. I literally wanted to reach through the TV screen and just punch him, this transporter guy. And I just wanted to. That made me mad both times in recent weeks when I stumbled upon this, because I don't watch it regularly. I just watch it. I just happened to see it accidentally, and this guy, he had a really bad attitude, and I just wanted to. I wanted to reach through the TV, and just destroy him. But what would it be like if I was a senator or a congressman or something, and I was interrogating one of these guys, like at a congressional hearing or something? Because like if there's congressional hearings or something, if I was like a senator or a member of Congress, or then that's then they find out who's talking trash now. Because I would say to them, what I would tell the transporters is you may have had an attitude in that TV show, or you might have an attitude when you're dealing with 15-year-olds, but you're not going to have an attitude like that here. I'm just going to have to say, listen, you're not going to come into Congress with an attitude like that. If you want to have an attitude here, this is the wrong place for it, because it just is. It's just the the wrong place to be having an attitude. But the thing is, they encourage more of it by showing it on TV, and the parents of these teenagers are just as bad because they're like, it's what are we gonna do about our 16-year-old who hangs out with friends who cuss and say things like poo poo and things like that. And it's like, for another thing, and whose fault is it that the kids are like this? Who raised them? Wasn't it the parents who raised them? So, in other words, Dr. Phil is promoting fascism. So, is it fair to say that Dr. Phil is a fascist? Well, probably. He is promoting fascism on his TV show in front of millions of viewers nationwide. And he has also donated to Republican candidates. So that's another strike against Dr. Phil. But mostly Phil Graham. Dr. Phil McGraw's donated to Phil Graham, the politician. I guess because I don't know, maybe he likes him because his name is Phil or something. What's next? Is he going to donate to Phil Collins too? But he did. It was actually in the Federal Election Commission's records. You could go look it up. And Phil Graham was as much of a fascist as Dr. Phil was. He was. Phil Graham was... His speech about 10 years in the Pahokee. So that's and that's also another reason why we should boycott Dr. Phil and complain to the stations that show his miserable program, like Channel 5 and many other stations nationwide, because he is one of the biggest culprits in ruining the United States today, is Dr. Phil. And he comes along and he says, in every episode he says some of the same things. He always says, it is not okay. Well, guess what, Dr. Phil? It is not okay to have transporters on your show taking people to programs. That's what's not okay, Dr. Phil. Get it? So, but don't expect Congress to do anything about it, though. The whole situation I had before talking about Congress, that was hypothetical. The current Congress is just so incompetent that that you just don't really expect to see anything useful come out of them. But that's the story of Dr. Phil and his fascist TV show. He's got one of the most fascist TV shows